I am joined as ever by Laure Jackson, and sorry for my voice, but hello, Anne.
Hello, it is so lovely to be here.
Now, I'm just going to dive straight into the topic, which should be fairly obvious what we're going to do, because we look at topics, and I don't know how many of these you've done, 30 or something, and we're still going because these are really interesting way of doing things. But we've looked at sensory healthy offices, sensory healthy truck design, sensory healthy schools and festivals and all these different things. But how do we help people do better with a sensory healthy dodgy voice
Yeah.
when everything in you wants to talk louder, which is bad? Because thankfully my family were very kind when I couldn't speak very loudly, and they would all come closer and they wouldn't get irritated when they couldn't understand what I said, because pretty immediately they realised, especially my voice was worse, this is a good day. They realised, he can't talk any louder, so we'll come nearer to him. I'm getting frustrated and wound up that I can't be heard, but we're a family, we work well together. I'll say to somebody, because someone asked for Peter, somebody asked for Joe, someone passed this message on, and I can whisper it to somebody and they pass it on. When those pieces of the jigsaw are not there, how might we help people have a better sensory healthy loss of voice?
That's a really interesting one. And I have to say, it's probably the first time I've ever been asked that, but I'm always up for a challenge too. And I think you used a couple of words in there. There were things like frustration and pulling together, and that those are the things. Those key words when it tips into, which it isn't for you. It wouldn't tip into anger, but there's anger, exhaustion. Actually, it can be really tiring. When you want to communicate and you can't. That's not a happy place to be, is it? Because you know that you have the capacity to be able to do something so much better, because so much of what we do hinges on our voice, hinges on being able to speak, hinges on good communication. So when we know that that's not there, that is hard for everybody. Everybody has to change and work out different ways of communicating in order to get messages heard, things done, things understood. But also, you've got to do it in a very different way so that you can feel at peace in that situation, rather than the frustration that comes with not being able to do things as automatically as you would have done, for sure. So if we break it down, saving your voice, I shall keep talking. We'll break it down into other things. I think the realities of just going back to the voice itself and that protection. So just seeing you drink there, it's so important that we keep that lubricated, those vocal folds, whatever infection or issue has happened in those vocal folds and the vocal cords, that's what is going to ultimately affect. So it's protecting those. I was told that actually whispering is even worse. That'd be interesting for your doctor if he says that. The whispering is actually worse for your vocal folds than actually speaking normally. So you're better not to even whisper and use another form of communication instead. But that hydration, that calming, doing things that you like to do, doing things that you want to do, doing things that make you feel good, so the body can heal itself from a better place as well. Dealing with anything emotionally, if things have been bothering you sensory wise, there are many things in the environment that can trigger those allergies that we've touched upon before, and other ways that our bodies hold the stress. Sickness comes in, but then it's how quickly can our bodies heal and deal with that sickness. And doing it in a sensory healthy way is the best possible, getting the right amount of physical movement, the right sights and the sounds and the smells, getting the environment right for what you feel you can cope with at that time. So when you, in particular, when you're a fully functioning radio presenter and broadcaster and YouTuber and all and magazine writer and editor and all the things that you do, you are functioning at top, at your top. And then something comes in and attacks a part of who you are and who you are. And that affects the capacity. It affects, I don't know if it affects your confidence as such, but it just affect the ability to actually get on and do things. So we need to do whatever we can to build you back up to that place of being able to do it as well as you ever have done. And that the consequences of having that sickness, that bug inside you, doesn't last for as long as it could do. And all of that is through temperature and taste, and healing and having your body as well as it can be, removing the stress where it can be, making the sensory environment as supportive as it possibly can be for you.
Now, I know we have talked often and frequently, and will continue to do so because I think it's awesome that there are more than five senses. There's five plus another two you've probably not heard of, and a third, which is a whole group of senses. But coming back to the original five that most people would be aware of, if you lose the touch in your hand because they've got really, really cold, for example, I'm thinking more about like losing a voice. For me, it's not normal. So this isn't something that's part of my daily life. But if you've got really cold hands, you might lose the ability to feel or even hold. So it's something quite sudden that comes, you get warm, your hand gets warmer, and all of a sudden you can feel better. If you can't hear, I blew my nose and thought, wow, I'm dizzy, because of course your ear, nose, your nose, your throat, your mouth are all connected. So I blew my nose and was like, oh, I'm dizzy. Not had this before. Jo gets it all the time when she gets a cold. So I've lost something suddenly. And with my voice, I've suddenly lost the ease with which I can communicate. And when we lose something suddenly, it can really be upsetting. It's the same way that if someone has to have an amputation of a leg or a hand, it's quite traumatic because all of a sudden they now need to do things differently. I remember the drummer for Def Leppard, he lost an arm. First time he stood up, he fell over because he didn't realise that actually his arms were keeping him upright because they were balanced. All of a sudden he's standing up without an arm, which had to be tragically amputated in an accident, and he's falling over because there are things in balance, and when they get out of balance, then it gets hard. So losing my voice, I'm now out of balance because I can't speak. So I've been texting some people, poor souls, who get my voice through my text, and I can text quite a lot. I can write quite well, which is maybe a good thing. But then we lose these things suddenly, and that's where the agitation or the anger can come in, because I could do this yesterday. Why can't I do it? I recorded a video when I didn't think I was ill, but I listened back and thought, I'm struggling to breathe a bit. I didn't realize you can hear my heavy breathing all through the video when I'm not saying anything. I hadn't realized that's a symbol to other people, because of course I couldn't hear my heavier breathing because I have got a cold. So when these things suddenly happen, it grips us, and it allows us a little bit of a glimpse into the world of people who have sensory healthy struggles, because we're suddenly getting something, but they have this on a much more long-term basis. So we build up the resistance of, well, it'll pass 5 days, 10 days, 30 days, whatever, it'll be gone.
Yeah.
Of course, for them, it's not like that.
No. And I think that is the biggest thing. And that's what I love to do more than anything, I think, is just supporting people in that long term, because we can cope with things quite remarkably when we know it's short term. And that, what you say, it will pass. That is such a powerful mindset for us to be able to cope with what we deal with. With most seasons in life, seasons can last a long time, but we know that at some point they will pass. Grief will pass. Loss will pass. There are things that are, things that just will pass in time. But when you're dealing with something that you know that you are different, or you see that in someone else, and maybe they're struggling with it, maybe you're struggling with it. And it's how do we help people with that mindset of something that, unless God intervenes and heals miraculously, which he does, he's healed me miraculously, so absolutely God can do what he can do. Often it happens slowly, or often it's this is who someone is, and actually it doesn't need to be healed. We just need to learn how to understand that person better and how to work with them and deal with our own frustrations and issues and angers. The fact that our life now looks completely different to what we thought it was going to be. They have caused my life to be different, and it's not the life that I expected. It's not the life that I wanted. But actually they are who they are. And if God doesn't do the miraculous, if God doesn't bring the healing in the way that we think he ought to, and in the timescales of which we think he ought to, then it always comes back to, where am I with it all? What is my theology? What is my mindset? How can I live in peace and in trust that this is actually God's plans and purposes here? They're big questions, but when you find the answers that connect with you, that are real, then that's a huge healing process. It's a journey to get there, and it's a journey to find it, and that's often through, especially the Christian sensory support aspect of what I do. It's coming alongside and saying, well, where is your theology? What are you thinking? Who are you blaming? Without realizing it or not, are you blaming yourself? Are you blaming God? Are you blaming the other person? We need to look at all of those issues to bring that freedom. We want people to live in hope for the future, regardless of any disability or difference or sickness or circumstances. We want people to live in that hope and in the freedom that Christ brings into that with his mindset and with a biblically based mindset. And I find that hard sometimes when I'm dealing with my folk who aren't Christians, and it's like, how do I put this in a way that's really going to help you? But if you don't have Christ, it's really hard. It's really hard to have that mindset of, God's got you. There are plans and purposes for your life, and you are utterly loved, and you are not rejected. You're not forsaken. It's just a different journey, and it's helping people find peace in the journey. That's a big part of what I do.
I guess locating who they are and what they are in the world, accepting there are things, some of which they can't change, some which they can, and that's when we need people like you or Dr. Scott, whatever, to think, okay, well, here's what we can fix physically, or we've got an audio processing struggle, we can fix that. There are some things that we can fix, whether that's physically or perhaps even mentally. But I wanted to talk about fountain pen just for a moment, because one of my favorite examples of, not because it's a really exciting thing, it's not, but of one of the things you shared many months ago about a child at school who couldn't hold paper. And the school just saw bad behavior. Actually, it wasn't bad behavior. It was an inability to hold a piece of paper. So I was using a fountain pen recently, and it's the same fountain pen with the same ink, literally at the same moment. On one piece of paper, it writes perfectly. On another piece of paper, it doesn't. And I'm there thinking, but it's paper and it's a fountain pen. How can there be a problem? And when I started to sort of do a little bit of investigation, sounds a bit like CSI, not that level, but like actually I'm discovering that certain of my notepads or whatever, the fountain pen works, and others it doesn't, because the paper is different. It's white. It's rectangular, pretty much. Sometimes it's got lines on. Sometimes I can feel the difference. And the one that really threw me, which is why I wanted to talk about this, sometimes I couldn't feel the difference between two pieces of paper. I got pretty good tactile touch. I can fairly sensitive. Think, well, these actually feel identical. If it's glossy, I can feel that. That's fine. But my pen knows more than I do, oddly, considering it's an inanimate object, because on some paper it'll write and some it doesn't. And I guess that in itself feeds into this conversation, because we can't necessarily always know and see. Yes, there are some bits of paper I can tell they're different. It's got lines on, we can see it. It feels different, it smells different, right? But if it looks the same and it smells the same and everything about it is identical, there can still be a difference that is basically invisible to the naked eye. So my fountain pen works, my fountain pen doesn't work. There's nothing wrong with it. Nothing's changed. It's the paper. That, I think, is a great illustration, I think, of where sensory health comes in, because how do you see someone who's physically disabled, might be in a wheelchair? That's an easy one, right? Fine, they're in a wheelchair, we can spot that. They've got a stick, they've got a white cane because they're blind. We can see these things. But there are so many people for whom, especially sensory health, we can't see the disability as we, I guess, even might want to be able to put them in a little box we can deal with that, as it's not so obvious.
Yeah, it was really interesting yesterday. I had a child and a parent come in. I've been working with the mum a little bit, and just saw him because he's a phenomenal footballer, and like he's basketball and he's boxing, and he's brilliant at physical activities where he's on the go. The problem is that he's always on the go, and that's not really helpful for the school and for everyone else. It's like, right, okay, what is going on here? Obviously, someone who has who looks brilliant on the outside with what he can do physically, but because I always want to dig a bit deeper, it's like finding those assessments that will help me go below the surface, so that it's not just my, as you say, it's not just my eyes that are seeing things, but it's how I'm able to pick up what's going on in the senses underneath. And there were a couple of assessments that just really highlighted that although when he's moving, he's absolutely brilliant, he's really coordinated, you stop him and he just can't do movements where for him to stop. He cannot stay still. He can't hold his body up against gravity for a certain period of time. His eyes, he can't coordinate and move his head in a certain way, which you kind of think doesn't make sense. If you didn't know sensory processing and integration, it doesn't make sense when you see him. He's a top sportsman and brilliant, but he's doing that on top of foundations that are not that strong, which impacts his life in other areas. So it's really important that that we actually do the assessment side of it to find out more of what's going on underneath, but also acknowledging that people struggle. Just take it seriously. There's another mum I was chatting to last week, and she was saying, like, yeah, we're not being taken seriously about this. So I said, look, send me the information that you have got, that we have been working on, and I'll do a covering letter for you, because it's like she's saying that people aren't listening to me, and it's like we need to continue getting the word out that sensory processing is a real thing, and that if you can't sit still, if you're bothered by the tags in your clothes, if you are bothered by the touch of paper, because we can't see, there are different types of paper, exactly what you're saying. If you can't hold yourself long enough to write sentences, if you struggle with writing those numbers, or if you find it difficult working in the office, following instructions. I had a beautiful email this week, or was it just the end of last week? One of the adults that I've been working with over a year ago, when she started, and she said the difference now, because she was going to lose her job. That's the thing. It's just, this is serious when people are doing it. And she was saying the difference this has made for her to be able to write these things down, to know what these things are, to be able to communicate that to her workplace, and they put reasonable adjustments in place. That is how it's all supposed to work, so we can support one another. So yeah, it's always both ways, isn't it? You have to really understand yourself, get a really good assessment for what's going on, and then be with people who are willing to listen, who are willing to hear what you have to say, and make accommodations that together you can find solutions. And that's the workplace. That's exactly what's going to be happening, hopefully, in the Sensory Healthy Church as well. As we come together, leaders, members, we come and talk so that we can actually hear what's going on, and little tweaks, little changes can happen so that people can actually start going back to fellowship, or continuing in fellowship if they're struggling and are considering just giving up and not going anymore.
I want to come back to the paper, and I'll come back to my voice as well in a bit. But with the paper, I did an assessment effectively. I had different bits of paper, I had notepads, and realised, hey, my fountain pen, which I really like to use because it's special to me, I can't use it. So what do? I pick up a pencil, pick up a biro. Now I'm doing exactly what I wanted to do, writing something on a piece of paper, just not using my fountain pen, limiting that to other pads or other bits of paper, and using a pen. Now, I can differentiate between the two and make a choice and do that. It's not necessarily that easy. Now, you could say, well, just get rid of the fountain pen. Why does it matter? Well, it's special to me. It matters to me. So I want to find a way of using it. So I've done that. Now, that took me not very much time at all. I did it in between working. Okay, this is really irritating. Let's fix this problem. But sometimes that irritation can be good because it makes us want to do things. It's like irritant in a shoe because of a stone. It's a really, really good thing to feel pain in your feet. It is such a good thing because you can take the shoe out off your foot. You take the stone out, on you go. Yeah. Irritation is not something to fear, but we don't necessarily understand, one, what's causing that irritation, and two, is there anything we can do about it? Mm-hmm. For me, I don't use my fountain pen with that pad, but I do on this one over here. I use a pencil or biro or whatever, because that will work. And I found a way of maintaining what I want to do, which could be the job that you want to do. I love my job, but I can't do it. But making some simple modifications like a different notepad, my fountain pen now works. Maybe a different office chair, swap it with a colleague. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, they haven't got a bad back. They haven't got itchy. They can get on. And sometimes some of the things that we can do can be so simple, but we need sometimes just to take a look back and an outside look, I suppose, and say, well, what is it that's going on for you with a story that I love because you were able to help so much? It's a piece of paper that they couldn't hold. They're not naughty. They're not badly behaved. They're not disruptive on purpose. They just can't hold paper. Mm-hmm. Well, once you take the paper out of the equation, I don't know, pad, whatever, all of a sudden you remove that problem, and then the obstacle for them for learning is gone, or the obstacle to keeping your job is gone. And that's such a high value thing to be able to do.
And it wasn't just one either. And you kind of think, how many of these other little things are totally unobserved, but we get frustrated by, or we criticize, or we, put judgments on, because it's just like, yeah.
But I guess that it comes down to understanding, because there are things you have to put up with. If you're in an open plan office, you can't demand your own office with walls because that's what you prefer. Okay, that's one thing. We're not talking about I'm irritated by the fact that the printer is in the wrong place in the room because I prefer it over there because it's easier for me. This isn't that conversation of making your life better for yourself. This is about how you integrate better in the real world, in the normal world, to do jobs in a normal way. I know normal is a standard that no one ever fits normal, but there is a sort of norm. People drive on the left-hand side of the road. There's a line on one side and a line on the other. You need to fit somewhere in it, and basically in the middle is the best place. You can be either side of it. You're not technically wrong, but in the centre is the best place to be. Unless you're on a motorbike, in which case the centre is the worst place to be. You want to be just to one side. So you need to understand, I guess, application relative to who you are, and it's going to look different. Me driving a truck, driving a car, driving a motorbike, driving a bicycle, riding a bicycle, my position on the road is going to be different based on the application of what I'm doing. Trucks are wider, cycles are tiny on the side, motorbikes just off to the side. So I can process all that, but we do need to think about how others fit in what is normal, because even within normal, there's going to be differences.
And it's going to be, I'm on an interesting journey myself just at the minute, because I'm now going into some elderly daycare facilities to help them with their sensory processing and to give them some sensory experiences, and using reminiscence and bringing people back to a time. It's not just reminiscence, but it's always nice when you're older to kind of like talk about talk about the past too. But it's using the sense of touch, especially in many of our older folk. They've lost their life partners. They've lost that sense of positive touch, and how, in particularly from the tactile perspective, how can I bring positive touch back into a daycare unit that is safe and that is secure, but is positive and is a lovely experience. So I'll be touching on all of the senses as I go in and give these older people some sensory circle time. A positive experience, but it's thinking how do I adapt that for their circumstance, because I'm not going to be able to get them up and running and on the swing like I would do with my adults. It's like, okay, so how do I, what I want to do is the same kind of thing, and it's like, how do you communicate when you don't have a voice and you're on radio? It's like, oh, okay, right, okay, how do you communicate with your family? But there are things of ways of writing. There's the looks, and they'll know your body language incredibly well, and so we have to look at all the different aspects to think, right, okay, that one thing has gone. We relied on that. It was a shock. But what other senses can we use? What other ways of communication can we use? And for me, it's what sensory input can I use, but do it in a different way according to the different ages and stages of the people that I work with.
Another thing that you said often enough that I can now quote this without sounding like an idiot. It's not about individual problems or occurrences. It's about a cluster of struggles. Now, that's my version of what you said.
Oh, nice.
Better. Yeah. But it's that cluster of struggles, not just one, because we're always going to have a struggle. It's completely randomly, but I was thinking about signs of domestic abuse. I remember learning about it in church years and years ago. Several of those probably is completely healthy and normal. The problem is when you have more and more and more and more of those, then you might have something that's worth asking a question. But take any one of those on its own, well, that's not a sign of anything other than love and care, actually. But too much of that, too intense, or too many of them, then you have a cluster of struggles. And I think that's where, like with my voice being not great, I've had to find other ways, and I've been irritated because I can't speak, and it's upsetting, and I want to speak. I've been off my radio show for days, and it's really frustrating because I really like my radio show, and it's something I enjoy doing. But a bit like the paper and the fountain pen, a bit like my idea with trucks and cars on the road, they have different positions slightly. We do need to assess better how we can keep on doing what it is that we need to do within the world around us. Because I think one of the things you've said, I'm sure you said this, you quote me wrong if I'm not, a big part of your job is helping people to identify their place in the world, not order of, higher or lower class. It's about their place in the world. How do I fit? I'm sitting on a chair in an office. This is my place in the world right now. There are people around. That's my place, and I need to be respectful to them. Right now, they're more respectful to me because I'm on with you. So they're not talking. I'm making lots of noise, and that's okay because they know their place in the world, and their place right now is to be silent, to be quiet, because we're on air. So it's those things about looking around us. It's that part of knowing where we fit in the world in order to get on with the world. And they also know that when we're not on air, if we're on when people see us at a festival, what have you, if we're on air, we're not asking to be quiet because we're in a room, whatever. In a studio, whole different thing. Same principle, different outcome because different context. So we need to understand the context. There's different pieces of paper. That person that you've helped in the workplace. Now, what is it they need to do differently? They need a job. They need to have a salary. They've got a house to run, probably, maybe children, a husband, I don't know. And it's all got to be paid for. So therefore, it's not, I need to leave my job because I can't cope. It's how do you cope in the job you have?
Yeah.
And it's a whole different outlook on life when you're trying to work out how to achieve it rather than avoid it.
Absolutely. As we want achieving. We want people to succeed. We want people to achieve. We want people to be doing the things that they want to do. And if there's a barrier in any way, shape or form, let's work out how we can dismantle that barrier or get over it or go around it or, whatever way it is that is there. But if there's a job, if there's something that you want to do, but it's just tricky, then that's the time to reach out, get in touch, or to have a look at your situation seriously and see what can be adapted, what can be changed so that you can be successful and achieve in that.
I love, especially as we come to a close, I love the fact that you've worked with very young ones, you've worked with older ones, and now you're working with the oldest ones in our society and helping them with their sensory health. For some reason, that makes me ridiculously happy. I don't know particularly why. You don't live near me. It's not helping me directly. I just love that you are now working with some of the oldest in society. Yeah. Because they are so often forgotten about, railroaded to the side, ignored, even like semi-retired. Oh, well, you can't do anything anymore. Really? We've got all this wisdom collectively in that nursing home or centre, whatever. There's so much wisdom. Like we need to access that because we look around the world, people are saying, oh, there's no wisdom left in the world. Well, there is. It's stuck in houses and no one's talking to them. Go and get the wisdom because they know all sorts of stuff. Let's not abandon them. So that, I don't know, makes me ridiculously happy that you're now helping some of the oldest in society with their sensory health. Oh, bless you, brother. But I was they called me, out of the blue and said, we've got 7 care homes. And it's just like, and it was just like, oh, crumbs random. It's like, well, yeah, of course I would. I'd love to. So let me make it work. It's like, yes, my life is full, but let me make it work because this is good and this is right. And so that's what I'm doing. Fantastic. If you want to get any help from Anne, whether it's physically and directly within Jersey, where she lives and works, or around the world because she's fully accessible digitally, which is awesome, you can do so. Just go to pure247radio.org, pure247radio.org/ALJ, and we will connect you to Anne Laure Jackson of Santé on Jersey. Thank you, Anne. Thank you. And bearing with my voice as it was is. Always. Bye for now. Bye. The February edition of Pure Media, the magazine, features some amazing chat with our Atlantic roots. This truly lovely and down-to-earth folk duo sit down with us to talk music, life, faith and travel. Martin Bateman sits down with us too to talk about Ambassadors Football. He talks about how he came to be where he is today. If you love football, you'll love this. If you love life, you'll love it even more. With a 6-month subscription to the UK costing just £48, including postage, head over to puremediathemagazine.com and you'll be properly sorted with this amazing magazine arriving at your door to brighten your day and your world. Yes, it really is that good. We also have subscriptions available for the US and more, so go check it out now. With no AI, this amazing magazine is made by real people for real people. Pick up yourself a copy. You won't want to put it down. Nobody does. We are always on point and always in print at www.puremediathemagazine.com.